my dad isn't. He doesn't accept gays, but he
Yeah.
accepts me as a son. So he loves me as a son, but doesn't I guess support my lifestyle. So that's a big step for us. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't need him to accept that. I just need him to accept me. And so as long as he accepts me, that's good enough for me. And I love that. And I think that it goes to, I guess, for everyone else that's listening too, that has issues like this, that are gay Polynesians, gay Tongans, and they don't have a good relationship with their parents. Um, I mean, I guess I got lucky that my parents were open to me, not trying to lose me, because I do know some Tongans out there that have came out to their parents and have completely got cut from their family. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to speak up and to be yourself, and don't lose yourself in while trying to be what your parents want to be. I think it's you should always stick to yourself and stay true to yourself, because you don't know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and I think that's what I ended up finding out. I ended up finding out that my parents were a lot more open than they were, because it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to talk to your parents about, especially about being gay, but it worked out in my favor. My dad, to this day, we have debates all the time, and it gets tiresome. But my dad doesn't like support the community, doesn't support LGBTQs, but will support me. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think
No,
it's very important to say something, to speak
no,
up.
yeah. I think you as Tongan kids, as Polynesian kids, that's one of our biggest fears, right? Is like when we want to talk about a very touchy subject, especially when it comes whatever it's just personal struggles, whatever it's just frustration, whether you're not feeling happy or lonely, whatever, or like you said, being gay. I think the hardest thing is like we're just so afraid of how our parents going to react.
Yeah,
And in our minds, like whenever we think about their reaction, it's always like the worst case scenario is you about to get your, they're gonna beat the shit out of you.
scary.
All right, so we assume that that's how it's gonna happen. So, but you said something that's very important. I feel like a lot of kids need to hear this. You don't know how your parents going to react until you tell them.
Yeah,
Right. So you don't know if they're gonna be open. You don't know how they're gonna take it. But you just gotta be. You have to have that conversation,
yeah,
and like I said, we don't have to wait till it gets really really bad and start yelling at each other. I do
yeah,
hope that based on people, kids or people that are watching this podcast, that you can have these conversations a lot earlier.
yeah.
As
Definitely
early as
nip it
early
in the
as you
bud.
can, as early
Yeah,
as you can. I think it's better if you can have it as early as you can. You just have to prepare yourself. You have
yeah,
to prepare yourself to
Woo.
what's going to happen. But like I said, because once your parents knows, okay, this is how you really feel, and this is how I really feel, and you're very, and they see that this is not, this is who you are as a kid.
Mhm.
As parents, they'll eventually they'll come around. They'll come around for you.
Yeah, exactly,
All right.
exactly.
It may not happen overnight. It may not
Yeah,
happen in a week or in a month or
yeah,
even in a year. But if you voice your opinion to your kid, to your parents, and let them know this is how I really feel and this is how I'm going to be, you
yeah.
know, um, eventually our
Unapologetic.
parents, yeah, eventually it's gonna happen. Like relationships is, it's not perfect. All relationships are not perfect, but it will happen over time. And I do want kids to have that conversation as early as possible. And you explain it, right. You don't know, if
Yeah,
look, if your parents end up being open, hey, great, right.
yeah,
They're loving, hey, great,
yeah,
works out for you.
yeah.
um if they don't and you end up getting cut from the family, hey, that's a
As long as you stay true to
yeah,
yourself, you know
exactly,
what I mean? Like you said, like it may not be right away overnight. It'll take a
yeah,
long time. Like in my own personal experience, my mom was overnight. Like
yeah,
literally in the instant, my mom changed, and I could see it in her. My dad, it took him a lot longer to come through, and
yeah,
I've noticed that within our community, because like the men in our community, and being Tongan, like Tongan men are very
strong,
manly. They're
masculine,
very,
masculine, yeah,
yeah, masculine. Like out of a lot of cultures I've seen, the Tongan men, in my mind, are like the epitome of masculinity, because they're
yeah,
very, very masculine.
yeah. That's how we're
But
taught to be and raised as
yeah,
kids.
and I think the scariest, the scariest Tongan guys are very, I don't know how to explain it. They're like that. You know what I mean? It's like you don't want to. I don't want to get my ass whooped by his dad. I'd rather get my ass whooped by his dad. But anyways, my dad, it took him a while to come around. My dad's very religious and he's very super, super Mormon. Um,
Yeah.
and it took him a while. He had to wrap his head around it. He had to think out. He had to look down this road, look down this road. How do I see myself? And so after my dad, it took about a good couple months, you know, for him to actually speak to me. And then probably like a year for him to actually understand. Um, but where we are today, my dad he still doesn't, it's like I can see in his head, he has a glimmer of hope that I'll marry a woman and have children someday. But,
It's not
but I
happening.
think yeah, he
I
just,
like his attitude though. I like the optimism.
yeah,
I love the
you know,
optimism, by the way.
he's optimistic in that sense. But I mean, my dad doesn't, he loves me a lot more today than he ever has. And I
Yeah.
feel it. And we had to go through, I guess, that sense of like arguing all the time and fighting and disagreeing for him to actually see me. And I think what my dad sees a lot in me is he sees a lot of himself in me, rather being so that I'm so like I stand up for myself. You know what I mean? Like I
Hmm.
speak up. And if I don't like something, I'm gonna say something. And I think I get that from my dad because my dad's very like that. My dad's very um he's like what's right or what's wrong, you know what I mean? Even if what's right is the hardest thing to do, you go that route and you take the high road so that you could be right kind of thing.
Oh,
Um
he's a practical dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's
yeah,
practical.
very, very, very much
Yeah,
like
like at the end of the day, he'll come down and just practically think about like uh, be
if it
rational
makes sense,
about. Yeah, it makes
he's
sense.
very
Yeah,
rational. Yeah, he's very
yeah,
rational.
yeah,
So if
yeah.
it makes sense, then it makes sense. But if it don't make sense, you're wrong. I can get into a whole other conversation about that.
Yeah. So
But all in all, it took my dad a lot to, really see me. So I definitely think that if your parents don't accept you right away, keep at it. Keep loving them, show them love, and be who you are, because eventually they'll see that. I think it's important for them to see that you still love them, even though they don't understand. So I think it's easier for them to reciprocate that love. Um, so yeah,
yeah,
be open.
and also for me, I have friends and family that are gay as well, and what I've seen also, like some of them have been cut from the family. I've seen that happen as well. And and if that ever happens to you, anybody's watching it, if that happens to you, I've seen them get cut, and then over time, years, right? Then
Man,
eventually they come back together, and they start build and rebuild and rekindle that relationship. Because the bond between a child and for me, based on what I've seen, the bond between the child and the parent and the Tongan child, the Tongan parent is stronger than most cultures or most other cultures I've seen. We may butt heads and we may go through a lot of tough times, but we just have that bond. I don't know how to explain it. We just have that undying
yeah,
bond, and
yeah,
even if nobody says anything, but it's inside, like we just like we love our parents love us, and we love them.
yeah,
And then maybe emotions get in the way, and certain circumstances, situations that you can't control. But deep down, at the end of the day, I've seen it so many times where the kids get disowned and get cut out, and then 10 years later, I think 15 years later, um, they actually rekindle or come back. Oh, I've seen one of the things happen is and one of like craziest or worst things that can happen is the child passes away, right?
ooh, that's
And then
tough.
and the mom was like, the mom finally or the dad finally like,
Like
voiced the
regret.
regret of never sharing what they really feel with their kid, and then their whole perspective towards everything changes from that day moment. So I've seen like all sides of what you went through and different outcomes of what every situation
Yeah,
that people
that's
went, yeah,
tough.
the kids went through. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't wish that on anybody.
yeah,
And if anyone is listening that has went through that, I'm sorry. Much love. I don't. I don't see that happening in my family, and I have seen a lot of people go through that, and it's just it's touching. Like
Yeah.
it's really sad for other people to go through that. Like I
Yeah.
said, I feel blessed. I feel very blessed
Yeah.
to have grown up the way that I have, and being gay and being able to open that to my parents, and my parents accepting that and accepting myself. I think um, that's a beautiful thing. You know, it was tough, but I think it worked out for the best. So I wish that for everyone. You know, I wish
Okay.
everyone could understand each other.